Sorry. Right, just clarifying which mute is mute.
I just don't want to mute Ad if he's talking mid-flow. You know, well, I don't know. There might be bonus.
Welcome back to episode 183 of Tall Boy Radio. And as we always say, who knows where it goes when the beer flows? Well, I'll tell you where it goes, all the way to Torremolinos. That's where we're going this week as we're doing a holiday tips and travel tips episode. And we are joined by a guest for that. But before we get to our guest, let's say hello to our irregulars. Gaza?
Evening the world. Yeah, looking forward to this one. Without giving too much away as to who our guest may be, he has appeared on our podcast before, so really looking forward to catching up with him again. And as Adam said, I'm sure there'll be one or two left turns along the way, and maybe one or two right turns as well. So looking forward to this.
Maybe, just maybe. Dave?
Yeah, if we get the left and right turn at the same time, that should be pretty good. Yeah, looking forward to this as well. Don't get that one, do you?
No, well, I think what you're saying is we'll be right on course.
Exactly.
Way. So we are joined by a guest, as we said. Now he's been on before, and it's Leigh from A Brit Travels. Did you want to say hello?
Yeah, thanks very much for having me back. Appreciate the invite again. Had a lot of fun last time. I said we'd do this, so hey, I'm happy to be back, and hopefully give one or two tips at least that'll help your listeners out and help them plan their travels a little bit better.
Indeed. So what we're going to be doing, we're going to be sharing some holiday and travel tips and hints for your benefit, things that you can do to make your travel this summer and any other summer go a little bit smoother. And if you're watching live, then feel free to ask any questions. And you know what? We'll do our best to answer them. Or if you want to throw in some hints and tips, we'll share those as well. I've got a few questions as well for these guys, asking for some tips on travel for my travels coming up in the summer. So, Leigh, we were chatting earlier before, and you were sharing. You said you had a few things to share in terms of holiday hints and tips, which you found really useful and important. Do you want to go and take one straight from the start there?
Yeah, I think probably best to go with the top of the bunch, most important first. Something that a few people get a little bit funky about. I know I did back in the day. We even do it with cars and things like that. But get yourself travel insurance. 100%, it needs to be done. There are people out there that don't do it. I was one of them. I was definitely one of them. And I've used the travel insurance since then. I was quite lucky to have the travel insurance and not quite realize that I had it until it was time to use it. And obviously I'm very thankful that I did have it at the time. But 100%, guys, like, travel insurance is the most important thing that you've got to have every time you leave the country. You don't want to be caught out in somewhere, the back sticks of nowhere, getting a little bit of a dodgy thing happening in Delhi or Bali or something like that, right? You need to be covered at all costs. Sounds to me, Leigh, like you might have had an experience there that you may want to share with our listeners. Yeah. Unfortunately. So, that time that I did thankfully have travel insurance, we were over in the US, and I think it is world knowledge, common knowledge, that the US healthcare system can be, let's say, a little bit on the pricey side if you have to use it. So I unfortunately ended up in a hospital in Central Florida, and I was in the hospital for 10 days. They gave me a goal. What is your goal by the end of this? And the goal obviously starts off, I want to go to the theme parks. I'm in Florida. Quickly becomes, I just actually want to get out of the hospital and go home. But at the end of that, the insurance company, thankfully, they cover everything. You are treated a little bit like you're on the self-scan at Tesco's, where they scan your wristband and then they scan the morphine, the potassium, and just run it through and add it to your shopping cart. But I paid $50 for it, and the itemized bill came to $120,000. So,
wow. Whoa, what?
Put that into perspective, that travel insurance is very necessary. I think it was $119,000 in total when I totaled it up. A 7-page bill, and that was me asking them to take me off some of the drugs after like 4 days or something.
That sounds like a hell of a hangover cure.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's getting paid for, dude. I'll ask for a few more.
Well, it did feel like a hangover for those 4 days. I'll put it that way. It was, when you're being pumped full of morphine for 4 days, it does feel a little bit weird. But like I paid $50 for that. So I saved $119,500. I don't know how it works otherwise. Like if I didn't have the insurance, like do I sit and scrub pots for $119,000 worth of pots or something? But
on a serious note, if you didn't have it though, like how would you pay for it? Because you might have a credit card or two, but I'm not sure what your limit is.
You don't know.
Anywhere near that.
Right? That'd be nice. I mean, that'd be quite dangerous for. It'd be quite dangerous for me. I quite like getting out of the country. If I had 120k credit limit on my cards, that'd be a little bit be an interesting conversation for sure. I'm sure there are people out there that do have that. So more power to you guys.
Yeah, fair play.
But yeah, like how do you even account for that? Like you just can't. It's a third of a house, half of a house. You're never going to be able to pay that back in your lifetime, and I don't know how it works. There's been obviously smaller instances that you could pay it on a credit card if it's a couple of tests, or I've broken my ankle or something when I'm in Magaluf or whatever, and you can get away with that because you just put a cast on, it gets set, and then you're back home. But you can't account for anything outside of a couple of grand, really. It just doesn't. It doesn't work at all. So yeah, that goes right to the top of the list for me for very obvious reasons as to why that is.
Well, I'll tell you what. If we can come up with another tip then that can beat that saving, that's good. That's the challenge. What about you two guys then? You guys, I presume you get holiday travel insurance.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, and I suppose the other thing is that, I mean, we're talking about credit cards. The other thing is sort of trying to purchase things on credit cards, because actually you do get some levels of insurance on credit cards. And I know I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that you sort of rack up credit card debt. I'm definitely not saying that. But if you have it in your current account, then use a credit card to pay for it, and then use whatever you've got in your current account to then pay the balance of your credit card off, just because there are certain advantages to using a credit card when you are making certain purchases, particularly if you are going on holiday. So that would definitely be one for me, is if you are in the position to use a credit card, I would absolutely say do that.
I always take travel insurance, although thanks to people like Leigh, it is starting to get expensive.
Sorry about that. Yeah,
you do. I mean, America is notorious. I mean, as you know, Steve, my brother, lives over there, and it's not just travelers that go over there that it'd be really, really expensive for. It's really expensive if you just live there. If you haven't got medical insurance, you're basically stuffed. I mean, but my instinct when they charge you 120 grand is you think, oh, if you weren't insurance, would it be less? But from what my brother tells me, it probably wouldn't be.
Well,
that's crazy. What I hear, yeah.
I mean, I don't know the answer to this. Maybe you might know, Dave, if you've been chatting to Steve. Like, if you're in America, if you hadn't got insurance, for example, do you have to sign something like before they start giving you the treatment to say, yes, I have the means to be able to pay for the treatment that you're about to give me? Because actually you don't know what they're about to give you. So I don't understand, because you could just say, yeah, sorry about that, can't pay. See ya. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. Is it like a means test or something? I don't know.
Well, I think that's part of it's a real political hot potato over there, isn't it? You had, was it Obama trying to bring in changes so that healthcare was available to all. Then I think Hillary Clinton was going to support that, and then Trump comes in and he doesn't support that, and I think Biden's caught in between a rock and a hard place because it's so expensive and the system's not geared up for it, that the industry itself doesn't want to do it. So to answer the question, as in, if you've got nothing, I think you do get emergency care. They're not going to let you die on the side of the street, but I'd imagine that you'd owe a big debt. I think it just goes away.
Sell your soul to the devil or something. I don't know how it works.
Yeah. I think sometimes, depending on the care, I think charities can get involved and stuff like that. But it's obviously, what you said there. It's not going to be the same kind of level of care as it would be if they're charging you 120 grand. So it's definitely food for the thought there. And actually, coming back to your point there, Gaz, about credit cards, and 100% with insurance of sorts and protection on purchases on the credit card, that applies both here and abroad as well. And purchasing holidays and whatnot, you've got contingency plans from your credit card company, and much like you said, not necessarily advocate in that everybody goes out and racks up credit card debt, but if you've got it, if you can pay it off, then you're paying off every single month and clearing that balance. Fantastic way of having that extra level of purchasing protection. And there are a number of cards out there that offer cashback and kind of loyalty schemes. You get your Avios points, you get your air miles and things like that can go towards sweetening the deal of sorts with those credit cards. It is just very crucial that you pay that back every month. Otherwise, it's going to cost you.
Yeah. And just while we're on travel insurance as well, there are bank accounts out there as well. Don't get me wrong. When you look at it, you are paying to have that account, but you pay and you do get a few other things included in there as well. So the one I have my RAC car, roadside pickups and what have you. That's all taken care of through the bank account, and my holiday insurance as well. So I don't have to get it. That said, I am then paying a premium to have that account, but it means that all of a sudden I'm on holiday. And if I do need that, I don't have to think about. It's one less thing to think about when I'm going. And I have had to use it myself. Leigh and I were chatting before we started. I've never, ever, thankfully, touch wood as I say this, because I'm off on holiday in a few weeks' time, I've never found myself in hospital or hospitalised or injured or ill abroad. However, we did have a time. So we'd booked Vegas for the wife's 30th, and then she was pregnant. I say it like it's her fault. I did have a hand in it.
Small part.
Yeah. She ruined it for me though. We were going to be staying at the Wynn, but we used our insurance to get our money back on that, and the Wynn were fantastic. We didn't even need insurance. They just gave us the money back and said, no worries. Look forward to having you when you can come. The planes, however, absolutely bit different altogether. They're a bit of a nightmare. We got everything back apart from the taxes, which we were able to claim back on insurance. So I hate to miss out and pay for something. You know me, I'm tight, I'm cheap. I don't like paying for stuff and getting nothing back in return. So I've got a question for you guys, and this is one where I'm looking for a little bit of help and a little bit of a tip on how to do this. So I'm off to the States myself this summer, and one of the things you need if you're going to the States is your ESTA, your visa waiver form. So there's another tip, folks. If you didn't know that, make sure you get that sorted. Back in the day when I first went, you used to fill in a piece of cardboard on the plane and nobody ever looked at
Yeah.
it the first time I went. Now there's a
And
whole app.
I'll
where
add
you
to
sort-
that.
Go on.
I'll add to that as well. Make sure you use the official website, because there are dodgy websites that
Yes.
catch you
yes,
in
there
between
are.
and charge you $50 or $60 as opposed to I think it's $21 now for the
It is.
Esther.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
20.
You know,
I'll be honest.
we've been caught out by that actually.
So have I. Yeah, so have I, to be honest. I mean, I only got stung for like $7 a person. But this is going by years. When I first did it, we paid and literally it was free. But the company were charging you $7 to fill it in for you. And what you're doing is giving them the details and they just transfer it to the site. It's an
Yeah.
absolute scam. But now there is a whole app which you can download, and I would recommend you go to the department, Homeland Department, whatever, and it'll tell you where to download the app. However, doing it for me, not a problem. Doing it for the wife, not a problem. Doing it for my daughter, not so bad. But you try and take a 3D picture of a 4-year-old, and I tell you what, when you're taking a photograph and you move it closer, I guarantee every 4-year-old will just look up like that because the cameras move close to him. It was an absolute nightmare. So that's a tip I'd like. If anybody's out there listening, how on earth do you take a 3D photograph of a 4-year-old? Because I tell you what, the poor lad was distraught by the end of it. We were at it for 2 hours.
Well, yeah. And the thing is, you say that it sounds relatively painless and straightforward, but sometimes it's just a rigmarole, isn't it? And you feel as though it's just like another hoop you've got to jump through. I mean, Christ knows what you've had to go through in terms of sort of initially trying to get to America, then not get to America. Now you're finally going to go. But you do feel like it's just, I've got to do this and I've got to do this and I've got to tick this off and I've got to make sure I fill this in. And it feels like one tiny little mistake and then that ruins like the whole lot. And you've just got to start out. And it's just a bind. It really is just a bind.
It's a ball ache of a process. It really is a ball ache of a process filling in. But it's a necessity. So if anybody out there has got any hints and tips on how to get those photographs, I'll appreciate them. So if I'm going again in a couple of years' time, don't get me wrong, he's going to be 2 years older and probably no less awkward though for taking photographs of, because he's not a fan of having his photograph taken.
Just while you're on the Esters though, I'm sure, is it 2 years? Lee, you probably know. Is it 2 years they last? Is it 2 years, 18 months, something like that?
Yeah, it's 2 years, and they are supposed to let you know, I think, before it runs out, but
right, okay.
You always forget, and the emails aren't the clearest. It just says your status has been updated. So
yeah,
if you go, that doesn't help me, guys. So just 2 years, and just kind of keep an eye on it. Maybe put a note in your diary. My Esther runs out on this day. If you've done it on the 31st of October, put a note in your diary for the 30th of October, 2 years time, and just keep an eye on it if you're somebody that does regularly go, or you think you're gonna go. And to that point, actually, the Esther can be quite limited in terms of the approval process, especially if there's something on your record at all that's happened in the past. So before you book anything, they last for 2 years. So before you book any holiday, before you book flights, hotel, anything at all, get that Esther first, just to make sure that you haven't got to go through the approval process of going to the embassy and getting an actual visa. Because if you get denied, and you're going to lose $21 on the Esther. If you get denied on the Esther when you've already booked everything, I don't know if the travel insurance companies or anything will cover that, because you'll probably be told that you knew what was going to happen. So it's be very proactive, get that Esther early, and make sure you've got it's in place before you book it. You've got 2 years then to use it.
It's a solid bit of advice, that is, dude. Thankfully mine have come through, but I booked my holiday and everything first.
So basically, what you're saying is you did everything.
Don't do that, yeah.
Well, I mean, just to give you an idea of how poor my planning is, so I booked Manchester Airport to leave the car I was in as well. And then we went car shopping on the weekend, and we're like, oh, hang on a minute, I've already registered the car. Probably shouldn't buy a new one just yet.
No, probably not.
Yeah.
No, that's a funny experience, because you got to go through the hassle of just ringing them up, and they'll probably put the price up in the process as well. So you're going to be stung either way.
I did the same thing in NCP car park. I'd got the account already, booked it, and it was only just before I was about to leave. I thought, I've changed car. since then. Fortunately, you could log in and change it online, and I got an email confirmation I'd changed it. And then about a week after we'd used the park, I got a letter with a fine. Yeah,
Nice,
trying
wow.
to find me for it. Tossers.
There you go.
So,
They're
has
trying to
anyone-
get their extra money, regardless, aren't they?
I didn't pay it, but you know, they apologise for the administrative error.
Nice. So, go on then. Holiday hints and tips. Who else has got another one they want to share with our listeners?
I mean, it sounds really obvious, and it probably is, but it catches like loads of people out. Is if you're booking a holiday, you know, you go with the budget and you think I'm going to spend this much money on going on holiday, and then you think, okay, so I'll book my seats on the airplane. Oh yeah, well that's an extra as well, and then I've got to book in an extra luggage. Oh well, that's an extra as well. So, and it only sounds. I say, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it's not hugely expensive, but, you know, plan and actually budget for the fact you've got to get to wherever it is that you're going. Because you look at you, and particularly, you know, if you're on a package holiday, yeah, the flights are in your hotels and stuff, but there's always those hidden extras. So it really is worth just sort of reading the small print, checking that actually, you know what, some of the seats on the airplane might be at no extra cost, but if you wanted 2 together or 3 together, or you wanted particular position in the plane or extra leg room, etc. You know, so just your little hidden extras that, and then obviously what you've then got is, particularly if you are going into America, check for their state tax, because obviously some states they'll charge you extra for certain things, so they've got state tax, other states don't, and it varies and all of this sort of thing. So really just do your homework in terms of what, you know, where you're going and exactly how much it's going to cost you.
Indeed, and you've recently done you've recently done Vegas, Gaz, so you know yourself, don't you? That you got resort fees as well to take into account.
Yeah, so you got resort fees in Vegas, and then obviously we went to San Francisco, and California has a state tax, so obviously you know, you've got to factor that in. So yeah, just your little hidden fees, and you know that's the thing for me, hints and tips.
Indeed. Dave, have you experienced anything like that?
Hidden stuff it's only hidden until you find it, though, isn't it? But Gaz is right, it's kind of incremental. It's like anything. If you go into a shop, you can always buy the basic model, and the next one's just a little bit more, and you change your mind, you go for that, then it's just a little bit more, and before you know it, you spent twice as much you intended. But my I think as a top tip, Adam, I think you'd use this one really well, is we have a travel folder which keeps our passports and Esters or anything like that in there. And we have a list in there. It's just a checklist of all the things we need to do. And it's every year we photocopy it and we might add to it. So if we're going to Europe, it'll be a list. But then if we go to America, we might add 2 or 3 things to it. And you can get a list, I'm sure, from anywhere off the internet. But the beauty of having your own list is you feel comfortable with it. But you've also got things like, you know, tell my mum where I'm going, you know, or, you know, drop the keys off with the neighbor, or ask somebody to check on the house, the things that you wouldn't necessarily get on just a standard holiday checklist. And because it's your list and you just keep it every year, and then all you do is you just go through which ones apply to this holiday, tick them off as you've done them. Bob's your uncle, you don't forget things.
That sounds like a website like Travel Chaos or something like that. Could do something like that. Dave, didn't you used to have What about, is that something you do, Leigh?
Yeah, I think we're a bit more on the fly about it. So I think that's actually that's a really good idea. And, you know, because you do come up with them each time, don't you? And you'll even get to the destination and think, oh, Christ, I've forgotten this, I've forgotten that. And, you know, it's just going through that repetitive process each time and knowing that you've got it, and it's, you know, getting your hands on it. Are my passports there? Is my travel money there? Are my travel adapters there? And things like that, you know. So yeah, I think I'm gonna have to use that travel tip and make my own actual document, put it on the wall, laminate it, and tick it off each time we go somewhere. Because
it's useful because you can assign things as well. So the kids have got tasks, Catherine's got tasks, I've got tasks. So you all work from the same list, and you all know what you're doing, and you all check it. It's the last thing you check before you leave the house. It's like a checklist of, I've got everything, all those things you've just said, Leigh, for example, the important stuff, your passport, your tickets, all that sort of stuff. It's really useful. It's really simple as well, and it's no effort because all you do at the start of each holiday is photocopy it, use it, and then that's it till next time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
very good tip. Very good tip.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are definitely going to appreciate that.
Yeah, well, we've got a top tip as well sent in by one of our viewers, Paul Kelly of the Seismic Cinema podcast. Says, top tip: if you're traveling through Cypriot airport security, replica BB guns in your luggage are totally cool. Hip flasks will get you taken in the back room with an armed guard. There you go. That's worth knowing.
Yeah, so don't travel to any Cypriot place with hip flasks. I
No.
think is the top tip there.
No, I can add to that as well. Actually, when we came back from Disneyland Paris, we bought the kids some bubble guns, some of the Buzz Lightyear bubble guns. Yeah, that's going to get you case searched as well. Just for the record.
I just want to know if Paul can clarify if that will get you taken in the back room or taken into the back room.
Are you taking it class just in case, Dave, or what? Have you had any experiences with security in airports, Lee?
Not in airports, thankfully. I'm always the don't look. You've done nothing, absolutely nothing wrong, but keep your head down. Don't look. Don't make eye contact with anybody. Be super polite to the immigration officer or things like that. We did get the bag searched. There we go. Taken two. We did get our bag searched at going into Disneyland Paris. Went for my birthday, and I've been bought a glass bottle with some sweets. One of those like Mr. Sim's sweet shops, like the old-fashioned sweets and stuff like that. So I got bought those, and I had it in my suitcase. And we were taking the suitcase because they've actually got a luggage check at Disneyland Paris. So if you're leaving in the evening, you can still go to the parks for the day and just check your luggage there. Top tip. And did that, and obviously you're going through the metal detectors and everything, and they're like, why have you got this glass bottle? And it was right, we're gonna take that off you. And I'm like, well, you're not taking the sweets, so what can I thankfully I had like a plastic bag in, and I was just pouring these sweets out into the plastic bag, like in the middle of the Esplanade at Disneyland Paris, and everybody holding up the queue 30-40 people deep. But yeah, that will get you taken just to the side, not taken into the back, to sort out your suitcase. But yeah, thankfully, touch wood, not had any run-ins with security just yet. Immigration officers and customs officers, you get your standard questions. What are you here for? And if you don't answer the question to their liking, they'll ask a little bit deeper questions. And if you're unlucky enough to have your bags searched by the customs officers, you just got to hope that you haven't got over your limit, which most of the time people do, right? Like we all like to buy an extra bottle of something out in Spain or France and bring it back. But yeah,
one of the things that sort of security when we went into the States, there was myself, my wife, two daughters, and we sort of queued up, and it ended up that I was with my eldest daughter, my wife was with the youngest daughter, and we ended up in two separate sort of queues to go through their sort of checks. So I went up and showed my passport, and they said, why are you traveling to the States? How long are you here for? Have you got any cash on you? I was like, about $50, something like that, but I would plan on using just cards when we're here. So, right, okay, through you go, sort of thing. And then my daughter went through, and they said, like, why are you coming to America? She said, holiday. And they said, who are you here with? And she went, oh, my dad. And he went, who's your dad? And she went, him. Sort of pointed at me. And he proper gave me like, I don't know, he thought I was like smuggling kids into the country or something. But give me like a proper like stare down. And like, she like, he said, have you got any money on you? So Amy, my daughter, and she's like proper scared, like really scared. She's like, no. Are you traveling with anybody else? She said, yeah. My sister and my mum. She's like, where are they? She went, over there, sort of thing. And I don't know whether or not Jenny and my youngest had the same sort of thing, but he was really, really arsey. Like, yeah. and I suppose in a way it might be his job, or I don't know, he just didn't like the look of me coming through or whatever. I don't know, but take your pick. But yeah, honestly, I
either.
really, yeah, could be either. But really, honestly, I suppose you got middle-aged guy, maybe slightly older middle-aged guy coming through with young girl on their own. It's like bit dodgy sort of thing. So whether or not, but that was it. That was going into America. That was into New York. That was.
So when he went into New York, sorry, just quick, I've got a really important question I need to clarify. Did he then say when he saw Abby, "Is that the girl off the Lily Kelly advert?"
He didn't say that. No. And she didn't carry the money that the girl from the Lily Kelly advert obviously has earned.
Dude, I don't buy a word of it. Dave, anyway, what question did you want to ask?
I was going to say, following up from Gaz, we had a very similar situation. I can't remember the exact details, but it was me and Alice at the security, and Albert and Catherine had gone to a different queue. He'd asked me a couple of questions, or she, I can't remember if it was he or she, and then they asked Alice a question, and I answered it, and she basically just looked and said, "I'm not talking to you."
Wow.
Like, oh,
yeah.
Okay. Because I didn't think, you're always, you 8, 9, 10, whatever age, you just, you don't realize that actually your instinct is to, in that situation, to answer for your child. And actually, when you think about it, clearly they want the child to answer for themselves to make sure they're not being smuggled in by somebody like Gaz.
Yeah. Well, a little bit harsh, Dave, to be fair.
You're going to the States again this year. I hope they don't watch this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that'll be on the watch list. They'll be like, come the end of July, like, yeah, we're not letting him in.
So go on then, Leigh. So obviously you've traveled a fair bit more. So what's your tips in terms of money and how you would take money abroad and how you spend money abroad?
Yeah, so good question actually, because that was on. I've made myself a little list here actually of these travel tips, and much like what we said about credit cards, I'm not necessarily endorsing any purchasing schemes or credit cards or financial advice or anything like that. But there are special travel cards out there. You've got the likes of Revolut, Monzo. I believe you've got like Halifax do a special card that you can use abroad free of charge. And it's just being prepared for things like that and saving. I think the banks like to charge you 2% or 3% on every transaction. Plus they give you a pretty rubbish rate as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure we've all done it. We've used just our debit card out there, and something that should have been 50 quid has ended up costing 60 quid. Because we've been charged all the fees on top of it. Now we use something called Curve, and that's it's not one that you top up. There's a couple out there that you have to top up, but this just links directly to my card, like the debit card, my credit card, and it charges my card in pounds, but pays in dollars or euros or whatever currency. And it gives a very good rate, no additional fees or anything like that on top of it. And actually linking back to the first point that we said, I do pay extra for mine, and it comes with travel insurance. And that's what I used for that. So I think I pay $15 a month. I get a higher limit to spend fee-free, more that I can take out the cash point, and then I get my travel insurance. I get gadget insurance, I think up to £1,000, which doesn't really cover a lot nowadays because every phone's over £1,000. So if you lose your phone, you're still going to be out of pocket. But little things like that. I know Revolut is quite supposed to be quite good as well, and that one you have to top up, but that's good if you are there on a bit more of a budget, you're keeping an eye on things, and you want to save over time. You can add £20, £30 here and there. And it's also good for, something like that might be good for children as well, or for you to keep for your children. You can put their pocket money on there or something like that. They get £20 a month, £20 a week. I don't know what the going rate is nowadays. Maybe I'm being generous. So
very.
I apologise if your kids listen to this, and I just cost you extra 60 quid a month.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just little things like that. We very rarely take much cash with us anymore. If I'm going to the US, I generally don't. I'll take $50, like Gaz said. I'll take $50 just as backup money, as a precaution, you know. But you don't need it in a lot of places. We did have bit of an awkward one in Hong Kong. The underground system there, you have to pay cash to top up your what's an Oyster card to us. Ironically, is called an octopus card to them, and you have to top that up by cash. But that's really, you know, and apart from the little mum and pop shops, everywhere's going to take card nowadays. We're in that new. Obviously, we all know what happened the past 3 years, and I think we've all moved away from handling cash, really, especially in big cities and towns and whatnot.
When you're paying with card as well, you should always choose the local currency, shouldn't you? So when it says how do you want to pay, you should always pick the local currency.
Because that was one of the things I was literally going to ask. Because obviously you get the option, says, do you want to pay in, you know, sterling, or do you want to pay in euros or dollars or pesos or wherever it is that you're going to go? And that was one of the questions I was going to ask, is because you're forever then it says it's going to cost you this much in sterling and this much, and you're like trying to do frantically do the calculations in your head and trying to think which works out cheaper. But you just answered that, Dave, so I appreciate that. So always paying the local currency. Yeah,
very, very good tip. And actually, you know, something just on the fly, your phone will be able to tell you how much it is. I don't want to say the names of the assistants. You know what it is on iPhones. You know what it is on Android phones. You know what it is on your home device, and I'm not going to set that off if you're watching that in your living room or something like that. But you can say such and such how much what is $50 in pounds, and it'll tell you there on the fly, so long as you've got internet. So
yeah,
you know, being able to do that, and links to what Dave said, just pay in the local. 99% of the time, you're better off paying local currency, because you know they're just going to give you a much better rate, or at least if you've got one of these travel cards, it'll give you a better rate anyway.
Yeah, I know the post office do one as well, where it links to your phone, so you put so much on it and it keeps you updated on an app and literally tells you how much money you've got left as well. Now, it's not. I've not used that one actually. We use something. I wish I'd actually done a bit of research on that, but the wife sorts it out. But she's got a good rate. She works in banking. So, Dave, do you ever take cash abroad?
When we go to Europe, France and Germany, we do actually take quite a lot of cash, $500-600 in euros, and we tend to use that. I don't know if that's a pre-COVID thing, and I don't know if, like in this country now, everyone's got handheld credit card scanners. But previously, you know, if we go out visiting some chateau or take the kids horse riding or the sort of things we do, they were kind of back and beyond and not sort of mainstream high street cities. And just having cash was just far easier. And in restaurants and things, it's just easier. We've always done that. And then we start off doing a mix, paying by cash, paying by credit card. And as the 2 weeks move on, we just pay more and more by money. So we tend to use most of it, by about €100 before we come home. I don't know. That may be different next time we go. I'll probably take cash and then gauge it on the next trip, whether it's shifted lows like it has in this country.
Do you not find though, if you are paying cash, that you take, I don't know, 300, 400 euros, and you know, if you can speak the lingo, great. But then when they say, you say, combien, monsieur, and he'll read off like an amount, and you didn't listen to it, B, you said it way too fast, so C, you just end up giving him like a €20 note for something that costs like £4. You end up with a pocket full of bloody coins, and you're like, for Christ's sake, I could have just counted them out. But you just end up paying with just like notes, and you end up in your wallet, it's just like a mass of coins. You're like, really? I've got to carry this around with me?
We do end up with a huge amount of coins that then just sit in the car,
exactly.
and they stay there and they accumulate. And as we're coming home, it's normally when we're on the tunnel, we're kind of moving all the currency, swapping everything back over in your wallets, and you find out you've got this like 100 weight of coins. But that's not. I don't think that's because I necessarily don't know what they say. I think it's more that you don't carry those coins around with you. So next time you pay with €20 and you get your €8 change. And the next time you pay, you do it again and do it again. And you go back to where you're staying and you empty your pockets, and then you don't take it with you the next day. By the end of 2 weeks, you've got loads of it.
Yeah. I think it's also not knowing where they are as well, not knowing the coins as well, right? Like, You don't know necessarily what 50 Cent looks like. We all know who 50 Cent is and what he looks like.
Well, you beat me to
What
it.
the Queen looks like. So I'm on it. I'm quick thinking.
I don't buy.
Yeah.
Dave doesn't know who
We
he
should
is.
shut him off now. Like,
So Gaz brought up a good question there, though. Like French, we all did a little bit of French. Leigh, when you go abroad, do you ever learn a little bit of the lingo before you go?
I try and learn the basics, the absolute basic. Hello, goodbye, please, thank you. Just to kind of be polite. I think it obviously goes. I wish I was one of those people that could just absorb languages. Back in school when we had to do French and German and Spanish and all that lot. I was top of the class, but you don't use it, right? You don't speak the language. And now I pretty much know, bonjour, je suis anglais, all that, the real basic.
Parlez-vous anglais, monsieur?
Voulez-vous coucher avec moi?
Hey,
that's the kind of holiday he likes.
You cheeky little scamper.
But that's like all the stuff we know, right? Look, we don't sit there. And actually, I was having this conversation with somebody a few days ago, and he was saying that when he started learning Spanish, his wife is Spanish, so he's quite lucky that she would be able to teach him. But before that, he was just learning. He wasn't learning the filler words, I, we, but, things like that. He was just learning the main words, like bathroom, restaurant, things like that, because you can still get by with just those words. I bathroom. If you say I, people are still going to understand you. If you say bathroom in the local tongue, but you say I in or we or whatever in English, people are still going to understand and get the gist of what you're trying to say anyway. So I think just picking up a couple of words to be polite and try not to be the person that's pointing and shouting at the menu board. We've all done that. We've all been that person, and we probably still will be those people. But at least we can do it with a please and a thank you at the end of it. Right? So,
no, that's good. That's good. I used Dutch in Amsterdam. I asked for something off the menu in Dutch, and the waitress said, "I'm sorry, I don't speak Dutch. I'm English." It's like,
okay, bit of role reverse.
Yeah, hang on a minute. How does that work? I've learned it a little bit because I'm here for a week. No, I always do, which is why I like to go to the States. I don't need to learn anything before I go. So just going back then, carrying money, there's a good reason why you don't carry money. It's because, a lot of the places we go to are thoroughfares. They're very popular with other tourists. And there's always a danger of crime. Has anybody ever been a victim of crime or got any other tips about it?
So I got scammed a little bit, I suppose, when we were in New York. We went to buy an underground pass for one sort of equivalent of like a day pass sort of thing. And there was a guy in one of the tube stations, can't remember which one it was, and he got official jacket on and he was by the machine and he went, he said, what do you want? And I said, we need a 2-day run around, the equivalent of like a 2-day run around ticket, whatever, for the 4 of us. And he went, okay, and he punched it into the machine and he said something like that, like $100 or something. I can't remember exactly what happened, but he said it would last for 2 days. And I went to put my card into the machine and it wouldn't accept my card. So he said, I've got this one, like a handheld one. Of course, stupidly, I went, oh, okay. And he said, I'll put mine into the machine and give you the card. You pay here. So he put his card into the machine and tapped some buttons, and then it spat out these 4 cards, one for me, one for Jenny, one for my 2 girls. And then I paid it on his machine. And obviously what he'd done, and I only subsequently found this out, he'd basically just paid for like a 24-hour runaround ticket and actually charged me for like a 2-day runaround ticket. So I paid $100, whatever. And at the end of the first day, I went at the start of the next day to try and use it. And it's like nothing on this account. And I was like, hold on a minute. Went to the guy in the ticket booth. So then he went, yeah, it's run out. You've been done. And I was like, fuck. hell sort of thing. You know what I mean? So just little things like that. And it was only, like I say, it's only like $100. But I say only $100. It's $100 sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know. So, I sort of got scammed like that. Interested, like never massively felt sort of threatened in any way in any of the countries or cities I've ever been in, really. But yeah, we did get. I say we, the world. I got scammed a bit when we were in New York. Yeah.
Yeah. What about yourself, Leigh?
Ironically, actually, New York as well. It seems the place to have it happen. Nothing like that, but it was one of those one of the people that hang out in Times Square, and they sort of collar you, listen to my EP or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And they put it, what's your name, and they've already signed it before you finish saying your name. Right, that's $20, please. You know, and it's just being careful on those. That was my first like long distance travel, back way back then. So I was super novice, and I broke every single tip that I've given out tonight. I took probably about $1,000 in cash with me. I didn't have a travel card, probably didn't have travel insurance, didn't do any research on it at all.
Yeah.
And then I went and got scammed in Times Square. So it's just being cautious of those and thinking about the situation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really,
The only other time, so we were in. It didn't happen to me, but we got talking to this couple in Las Vegas, and you've been to Las Vegas, Leigh, I assume. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you walk along Las Vegas, and obviously you walk down the strip, and you get the dancing girls with the bikinis and the big headdresses on, and very scantily clad, and women dressed in, well, not really dressed, but painted in the stars and stripes and stuff. And they come and have your photo taken. They say, "Oh, come and have this photo taken." And this one guy was saying that there were 3 of them, and basically they said, "Do you want a photo?" And he said, "Yeah, okay." So one of them said, like, "Oh, hand us your phone." So he gave one his phone, and then the other 2 put their arm around this guy, and they took a couple of photos with him. And they said, "Oh, yeah, that's like $50 or whatever." And he went, "Oh, no, I don't want to pay." And they're like, "Well, you're not getting your phone back then." Because literally, like, one of these women had his phone, and he's obviously posed with this photo. And they've said, "Well, basically, pay us $50 for that, or you don't get your phone back." And he went, like, obviously, he said he went a bit mental and stuff, but I don't kind of know what that meant. I don't really kick shit out of them. I don't know. But
there's not a lot
he said
over there, right? Like, you can't really get into that kind of confrontation with it.
Because you never know, because they've got 3 absolute meat taxis around the corner or whatever, just ready for that very reason. Do you know what I mean? So,
absolutely.
He ended up basically paying it, and it's like, wow, that was an expensive photo.
Gee whiz, yeah. That's how they make their money, and that's how they pay for their headdresses.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What about yourself, Dave?
Never been caught out or scammed or robbed or anything. There was one instance, I think I mentioned it on the last episode, so I'll do it briefly. It's when me and my mate were in Disneyland or Disney World, whichever one it is, over on the west side of America. And we'd got a taxi out, and the guy had arranged to pick us up at the end, and he turned up, and he was in like a normal car, not a taxi. And we were like, do we get in this or not? And it was like, yeah, it's fine. So, and then he started to drive a completely different way. And he said, "I'm just showing you all the sights." And he's going off through sort of, places that didn't look that. But he was actually showing the sights. We were bricking it. But after about 20 minutes, we thought, this is probably okay. But we were relieved when we got there. So it wasn't, unless he was going to do something and he changed his mind. I'd like to think it was just all innocent. I mean, the other one, which is not, it's not intentional fraud or scamming, but you just have to watch out for unintentional things just from ignorance. So, for example, in France, I'm sure in many other cities, particularly in Europe, if you go to a cafe or a bar or a restaurant, if you sit outside, it's going to cost you more just because you sit outside. It's just things like that if you haven't done your research, you could just go, rock up, sit down, have no idea, and all of a sudden it's 15-20% more. So you just got to do your research before you go.
Indeed, good tips. Yeah. Good tips.
I think going off what you said there about like taxis and stuff, we always put our destination in the app, like in Google Maps or Apple Maps or something, whenever we get into a taxi, and just kind of make sure that they're going in the general direction. They may not necessarily follow the route that the app says, especially, you know, like London taxi drivers, they know the black cab drivers, they know every street, right, for 20-mile radius, so they might take a different route, but we always put it in the sat nav, so we know that we're heading at least in the general direction. We know they're not going to take us to some back alley or something like that. They could still take us to some back alley, but at least it'll be close to our hotel.
Yeah, I was going to say, at least you're going in the right direction.
The only problem with that, Lee, is this was pre-mobile, so.
Right, yeah.
I won't make anybody feel bad. I don't be ageist or anything like that.
You didn't have to. Your face gave it away. You're like, wow.
Yeah.
I remember those times. I do remember those times. I wasn't traveling during those times. I wasn't traveling without my parents during those times.
Yeah, that's it. You were just 5 at the time.
Yeah. Hey, come on. I'm 30. I've got a little bit. I got a few years behind me, but yeah. I don't. You know, what are we on, like the iPhone 15 or something at this point? You know, 14 or 15. So we've had them around for nearly half my life at this point. So, you know, our children aren't going to know a world outside of mobile phones.
No.
Which is really weird and slightly horrible to think of as well, because kind of miss the times actually, however convenient they are now.
Yeah, they do take over, and they play a big part in travel as well, though, don't they? Do technology is a big part. Have you got any other tips, maybe involving technology?
Yeah, I think this wasn't on my list, but good question to ask actually. Making sure that you've got internet abroad and keeping an eye on what those costs will be. You know, we can actually avoid a lot of these kind of scams and issues now by having access to the internet on our phones, you know, and I think, you know, since we've moved out of Europe, all of those costs have started to come in. I think it's like £2 a day on a lot of networks. But if your phone's unlocked, you can pick up a cheap SIM card out there for, you know, €5 or €6 for a few days if you go to France or Spain or whatever. Even cheaper if you're going east. You know, so we've got kind of those options. So at least you've got access to maps. At least you've got access to be able to ask the phone assistant how much something's going to be. You know, you can do your own research and stuff on the go. A lot of phones nowadays have got 2 SIM card options. So, you know, you can just pick a virtual SIM card when you land, and you've got internet there, and you still keep your number so you can text your mates. So,
but again, just when, you know, you mentioned you sort of texting, I know you've got your internet charges and stuff, but, you know, obviously your message fees, things like that. So look for, particularly if you're in resorts and they have resort Wi-Fi's and stuff, and assume that the Wi-Fi network is secure. Obviously, you don't want to be using any dodgy or unsecured network sort of thing. But, you know, use some of your social media, use your WhatsApp instead of sending a text message, because your WhatsApp will probably be free as opposed to a text message, which going from wherever it is to wherever it is probably going to cost you an arm and a leg. You know, so it's just been a little bit savvy with that sort of thing. But again, be savvy in the networks that you choose, because you don't want to be jumping onto somebody's unsecured network, and, you know, obviously all your data is open for everybody then. So just little things like that. It's just be aware of, if you are going to keep in touch and communicate with people, just how you're going to do that to keep the costs down.
Indeed.
Yeah. Great tip actually, especially with, you know, sending the text message or even actually answering the call. I think I'm pretty sure answering a call costs money in a lot of countries now. So, you know, if it's just your mum asking, you know, are you coming see us on the Sunday or something, you know, no, I'm in the south of France. I'm not coming to see you. Just don't answer it.
Hey, I'm in the south of France, and that's just cost me £4.80. But thanks very much. I appreciate that. Just send me WhatsApp next time.
There's a holiday tip we weren't expecting. Don't text your mum.
Don't text your mum whilst you're on holiday. Yeah, no, don't answer the calls. You know, because especially when we get so many like spam calls nowadays, you know, you don't want to be answering a spam call and it's just cost you £4. You know, if it's important, they'll leave a voicemail, and you know, then you can get to that as and when. So,
Indeed. So
Another
what
one
else
on
have you got?
tech. Oh,
Go on.
sorry, I was just going to throw another one on tech. Is Google Translate and pre-download the language if that's still an option. It used to be. I don't know if it's automatic now, but Google Translate is fabulous, not just for typing in a translation, but the camera to scan real time. So we go to museums and stuff. You know, I'm not too bad in French, but if you go to museums and stuff, it's sometimes quite difficult, but you just hold it up and it just translates it right on the screen. You can all look at it and you can just enjoy the experience a lot more. And it's tech, and you kind of, you want to get away from tech a lot when you go on holiday with the kids and stuff. But actually, that's a really good use of tech, which isn't taken away. It's adding value to what you're doing there.
But just one step further than that is obviously if you're then looking at restaurants as well. So if you go into a restaurant in a foreign country and you're not exactly sure, just hold your phone up, as you say, Dave. Just use the camera and it will translate that menu in. And as much as you want to try and encourage your kids to use the language and to understand the language, if you genuinely don't know, I mean, like I say, we could probably just about get by in France, but that would be it. Spain, I'd be knackered, and Germany, I'd be knackered, and that sort of thing. So by holding it up and just seeing it, again, it's a bit of tech, but it will help you out.
Indeed. And Wi-Fi call is the way to go, says Paul1918 from YouTube. So Lee, what else have you got on your list then for tips for travelers?
Yeah, so for us, actually, we look at, if we're doing a bunch of attractions, I think, we've mentioned New York a couple of times and kind of getting scammed in New York, with slight tangent from getting scammed, thankfully. But city passes, for your tourist attractions. A lot of countries that you go, New York is one of those. I know for a fact does those city passes, and it will get you into, top of the rock. It'll get you to the Empire State Building, Statue of Liberty, a few more attractions, and normally it will be 20%, 30% cheaper. So kind of do a little bit of research on what attractions you're going to do. And even if actually you're not necessarily thinking of doing those attractions, sometimes on the city passes, it will give you a tip for an attraction that you may not have thought of, but you might like, actually. I think the New York one, it comes with the Guggenheim. Probably wouldn't have really thought to go to the Guggenheim, but it's it's included as part of my city pass one. It's essentially free at that point, right? So
the other thing as well that we find is if you're traveling around, and you have to work out and be relatively savvy, but if you are on one of the city pass attractions and you've got your hop on hop off bus and stuff, actually use that as a means to then get around, rather than maybe either jumping in a cab or using a tube or something. Actually do a bit of research and plot your way around and say, actually, if we buy this pass, we can then go and look at those 3 or 4 attractions up there, and it doesn't really cost us any extra to get there because we can just hop on and hop off the bus. And if there's lots and lots and lots of stops that you can get on and off, then it actually might work out a little bit cheaper than just trying to pay each little individual sort of transport visit. So just little things like that might be worth investigating, because we find the same. We had, is it called a city bus tour or something in New York, and it got you around the city, and there were various loops you could do. You could do like a Brooklyn loop, and then there's like a Midtown loop, and so you can plot your way around and then literally hop on and go, well, we're going to go to Rockefeller, or we're going to go to here, or we're going to go to there, and you just jump back on the bus, and that sort of works out relatively cheaper.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, and you get some good sights in the process as well, actually, because you see it from above rather than being on the subway in New York, or just in a taxi where you're a bit closed off. Those hop on hop off bus tours are fantastic for that kind of experience, right?
Yeah.
And it allows you to, if you do it on your, if you're in a place for 4 or 5 days, if you do it in your first or second day, it also gives you a way to orientate yourself a little bit. Especially if on that bus, Top of the Rock is actually only 6 blocks or so from the Empire State Building, but you'd planned it to do Top of the Rock in the morning and then Empire State in the evening, with 6 things in between. You're sort of throwing yourself all around the place.
I got a question, Ad. This is probably for me and Gaz primarily, and maybe one of our listeners. If you're taking teenagers abroad, and let's say not like an English-speaking theme park, but let's say to a foreign country where the culture is different, the language difference, the food difference. What would you suggest as a parent, or if there's a teenager listening from your perspective, what would you say we should do to make sure they get the most out of that holiday?
That's a good question.
Wow. Nothing like throwing them under the bus. I don't know. I think it's depends what type of holiday you want to go for. If you're going to go for city break, we're quite, I say, lucky. Our kids are slightly older now. Obviously, they're 16 and sort of nearly 18. So they will enjoy a lot of the things that we would enjoy. It's just that when we're looking around at things in between the attractions, they're walking around on their phone. But the actual attractions themselves, they are probably interested in the similar sort of things that we were. And when we went to New York, they wanted to do Rockefeller. They wanted to do Empire State. They wanted to do Statue of Liberty and all of that. So, but I think involve them in it. I think rather, pre-holiday, when you're doing your planning, it's like involve them in the planning and involve them in the planning of where you're going to go and what you're going to do. And it might be that, you might have to make a concession. We ended up going to Ellen Stardust Diner, which is a bit cheesy and a bit gimmicky and this, that, but our kids loved it because it's basically wannabe sort of Broadway singers and actors and actresses, and they just come and they wait at your table and then they sing songs. And my two kids loved it. It was good and it was a decent experience. It's a bit cheesy, but the food was okay. But so it's just one of those. So it's a little bit give and take. But I would absolutely say involve them in the planning and allow them to choose certain things that they want to go and do as well.
Mm. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. And following up to what Albert, who's Golden Panda, has posted on it, do we get laughed at when we're trying to speak a foreign language? Well, you might do, but who cares? I think, try it, because I certainly in France and Germany, trying it is massively appreciated. And the not trying it is totally frowned on. So those two extremes are really quite far apart. So, just embrace it. And with the kids, get them to try the food, get them to try the language, get them to try everything they can, because they're not likely to go back to the same place over and over again.
Yeah. And just, a couple of experiences when we went into France, we would get up and we did south of France and we did, your typical sort of static van, and we did like the Ciblou Key Camp sort of type holiday, and they'd always have like a little sort of boulangerie or whatever on the park, and you take your kids down and you say, right, say je voudrais, and they would say like je voudrais, and then you say de, and you baguette s'il vous plaît, and you sort of talking to it, and the people behind the counter there can appreciate what you're trying to do, because they can appreciate that you're trying to use their language. Because if you rock up and go, give us one of them, mate, you just get a bit frowned upon, don't you? It's just arrogant, isn't it, that we as a Brit expect that when we go abroad that everybody else speaks our language, and we're just really ignorant to other cultures and other languages, so yeah, absolutely, just try to immerse yourself in it.
Indeed. One. I'll answer your question though, Al, but I'll give you an example. One I have been laughed at, because I think that's perhaps what you're asking for. So I was in Paris. And, I do speak a bit of French, but before wherever we go anyway, I was prepared a little bit about what I was going to say. And we were going to do the Da Vinci tour, walking to the different sites. So I had in my mind, I walked up to the woman and she said something to me. I completely ignored what she said and just asked her in French, je voudrais de billet de la tour de Da Vinci, s'il vous plaît. And then she said again, this is an English-speaking tour, in a very broad Californian accent. We don't speak French, sorry. I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, I probably should have paid attention to you there. And there was a load of people in the queue laughing at me, and rightly so. But I will say this, though, on this, sorry, guys, that we went to France just recently. We went to Disneyland Paris, and I taught my daughter a little bit of French. And it got us an upgrade to the room, so we had a better view.
Nice.
And wherever we went, like the people, she would say hello and ask for stuff in French. And although it was pretty clear she doesn't speak it, then the waitress would take turns in teaching her a little bit of French as well. And it just got a much better interaction. It was really appreciated.
No, absolutely. And I think, the more that you can do that, and the more you can get them to, I'd say, you get them to speak. The funny thing is that you prepare what you want to say, and then you anticipate their response, and then you anticipate what you're then going to say to that. Now, if they then say something completely different than you're expecting, that absolutely just blows your mind, and you're just like, Est-ce que vous répétez, s'il vous plaît? And then you see, that's pretty good.
That was pretty good, that wasn't it?
And literally, you just end up saying that. So was it vous parlez trop vite? Est-ce que vous répétez, s'il vous plaît? So you talk very fast. Can you repeat it, please? But you end up saying that like over and over and over again. It's like, you know what? I'll just speak English. It's easier.
So, Leigh, have you got any other tips for us?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I was gonna. It kind of links in with what you said about immersing yourself in the culture, and you know, my tip here was going to be eat like a local, but I think actually immerse yourself in the culture is better. You know, don't sit there and go, you know, to have an English breakfast in Spain or something like that. You know, go and try their food, try their beer, their wine, whatever, you know, and actually be part of it, listen to what they're saying, and, you know, not just speak English to them. We're gonna, you know, like you said, they'll appreciate if you at least trying to say a handful of words in language to them. You're gonna get it wrong. You know, we're all gonna get it wrong. Your pronunciation will be off, or you know, you pronounce the word wrong and you'll say something completely ridiculous and you make yourself look like a fool, but they'll appreciate that you made yourself look like a fool for them trying it, you know. But yeah, like eating like a local as well, you know, you're going to get a far better deal on food than, you know, eating in a hard rock over in somewhere like Thailand is going to be 20 quid, but if you go to a little local restaurant, the same amount of food will cost you 4 quid.
Yeah,
you know, so those kind of things, you know, imported food. I'm sure you'll see this, you know, if you're in like an all-inclusive resort in Spain or whatever, you know, imported alcohol is going to be off the all-inclusive menu, or it's going to be additional charges or things like that. But if you have the local alcohol, it's all kind of included. You know, little things like that are going to, you know, all add up eventually, right?
And it also, you know, travel around a bit, you know, because I remember one of the first times we went and we found this lovely little sort of place in Mijas, and you're up in the mountains and you're sort of driving down and you come across this, you know, this square in Mijas, and there's a couple of little sort of tavernas and bistros and cafes and stuff, and it's off the beaten track. I mean, it was back in the day, you know. Now it's quite popular because people like me keep saying, "Oh, Mijas," and you go there. But you know, back in the day, it was lovely. It's quite quaint. There's a lovely little sort of square, and it's the typical, you know. You this is going to sound really stereotypical. You've got the old woman, and it's like almost, you know, you go and have lunch in her back room sort of thing, because you've got this tiny little cafe, but it's all homemade, it's authentic, it's tasty, and actually it's 100 times better than going to go down the main street and go to a greasy spoon. You go and have a fry up in bloody the Red Lion in the middle of Torremolinos or whatever, you know what I mean? And then you go and have a beer, and you go to the Irish pub and you're like, really? I'm in Spain. I've gone the Dog and Duck and Paddy McGuinness's or whatever, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's just stupid, isn't it? But that's what we do. But absolutely don't do that. You know, just get off the beaten track, assuming it's safe. And I'm not suggesting that, you know, you go wandering off on your own at all, but get off the beaten track and just go and try and discover a bit about the place that you're going to go to. You know, that's the thing for me.
Right, here's a question. Then here's a question on souvenirs, because we all like to bring back a few souvenirs on our travels. Me personally, I like to bring back a Christmas decoration from wherever I go to decorate my tree, which is quite challenging when you travel in the middle of summer sometimes. So if you were to buy a souvenir, would you only buy locally made products, not from China, for example, or would you not care about the origin of that product?
Oh, you got to go local, haven't you? Surely.
Yeah. Oh,
is there a reason he's asking that question, Dave? You're sort of smiling as though there's obviously there definitely is.
Dave's
by Dave's, yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, Luke, when you go to a lot of these places, when you go to the more popular tourist attractions, the gift shop, a lot of the stuff in there, no matter where you go in the world, seems to be the same sort of tat. that in every single shop, it's cheaply made. It's of no quality. It has nothing to do with the local area, other than perhaps the words "you're in France" or something, or "you're in Germany," or a printed
I love
map
New York,
or
I love France, or something like.
I mean, Albert is probably referring to that I always make that point of not going to gift shops, but also in where we have been in places before, it's got this cool, like it's a wine bottle holder. And it was probably, I don't know, 9 or 10 we got it from France, but it was handmade, and it was all like fabricated like scrap metal that had been made onto this motorbike, guy on a motorbike, but it's a wine bottle holder. It might have cost 30, 35 euros. I can't remember. It wasn't a 10 and it wasn't 100. So it was a decent amount of money, but it was something that was made there. And she told us about who was making it, how it was made. You could see, some of the materials in the background. You bring that back, it's a memory. I mean, I can't remember where it was, but Catherine will know where it was.
It's good memory.
I think it was Brittany. Albert might know, but he's a bit like me actually. He
Sandbach.
No, Taiwan. But it was made. But that you bring that back. But I know that was made by somebody in near one of the villages where we stayed. Now I don't know where.
Do you?
Remember,
do you really? Do you
don't
know?
even know where you were?
They must.
Do you know that she's just turned around going, here's another one. Let's sell him this story.
Same a story. Put a bit of scrap metal on the floor behind the counter. The old 4 point.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I don't think so. And if she did, then fair play. Because it's a nice thing. You don't mind. You didn't mind paying it. It's substantial, and you got value. And if she has done that, then fair play. But I don't think that was the case.
Yeah.
So we like to keep these episodes to around about the hour mark. We've gone a little bit over tonight, but I think it's worthwhile for you folks. So before we go, Leigh, any tips that you want to chuck out there for us? Just quick, sharp.
Yeah. So make a plan, but be flexible. Be flexible with what you're going to do, just in case things do change, attractions close. There's unforeseen circumstances. I think we all had plans over the past few years with COVID that unfortunately did have to change. So we were making little rough things, but yeah, just little things like that, and leaving yourself enough time to make sure that if you've seen something on the way, you've been researching, or you've driven past something, or you've walked past something, so you can go back and do it. Just leave yourself that little bit of breathing room. I know when we do these big holidays, we really want to like cram as much in, right? But you also want to enjoy it at the same time. So you got to leave yourself that breathing room to soak it in. And then if you do find something that you really want to do, you've got that time to go back to it. So I think that's quite good to just make sure you're enjoying it along the way, and not just trying to do stuff for the sake of doing it whilst you're there.
Indeed. It's a good one. It's a good time there, I think, to wrap it up. So, without further ado, who wants to say their goodbyes first, guys?
Yeah, really enjoyed this episode. The couple of times we've had Leigh on, it's been a bit of a laugh. It's been a hoot. Love chatting to him. Love chatting about his experiences traveling. He obviously is extremely sort of knowledgeable, and there's loads of sort of advice that he can give. So really enjoyed this episode, and enjoyed having a bit of a laugh with you guys again, just telling a couple of stories here and there about our travel. So we'll look forward to next time, because no doubt at some point we'll have Leigh back on again, and it'll be a Brit travels a bit further or whatever. We'll look forward to next time.
Indeed, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to have Leigh on again, and I suspect that his list is probably quite a bit longer, and we haven't really got all the way through it. And I'm quite pleased that we only said pay off your credit card in full only about 9 times this episode.
It's good advice, though, dude.
It's excellent advice.
I think it's advice that we don't all follow, sadly, but we should probably
do as we say, not do as we do.
Absolutely.
Solid advice. Leigh, do you want to say your goodbyes to our listeners? And if you do have anything else on that list that you think is really important to get out there, chuck it out there now, dude.
Yeah, no, I just want to say thanks for having me on again. Thank you for everybody at home listening and watching along. It's been great just talking to everybody and sharing knowledge, really, because I picked up a few hints and tips along the way here as well, which has been quite useful for me. I'm going to be making a list. I'm going to be printing it out and laminating it and sticking it on the wall, so I've got a proper packing list to go by. It's been great. It was great last time. I've really enjoyed it. And if you guys at home want to follow along, we've got this up in the top corner. Shameless plug. Do follow us along. We're currently on a Philippines travel series, and shortly going into Hong Kong and Hong Kong Disneyland. So be sure to check that out.
Yeah, and for our audio listeners, you can find him as Abrit Travels on YouTube and Abrit Travels on Instagram. And I would recommend you do, because they are worthy videos. Like I said before, the first time we had him on, that's where I came across Leigh, is when I was planning my trip to Disneyland Paris. That's where I came across Leigh, is watching one of his videos. And that would be probably my last tip that I chuck out there. Something I do before I go out there. Like we've all said, familiarize yourself with it. The way I do that is I watch a lot of YouTube videos. So I've seen a lot of these videos, and I've seen, if I'm going somewhere, I just bang it on, walking tour videos, whatever, just to familiarize myself with it and get a few ideas of the stuff that I want to see and do while I'm there. Some of it I might never have thought of, and you might not find in some of your travel guides. And that's it from us. So thank you very much for listening. Hopefully it won't be the last time we get Leigh on. We'd love to hear about some more of his travels. And I do suspect, like Dave says, we can probably get a few more tips out of him. So I will say thank you all for listening, and goodbye.